American exceptionalism is self-destruction because it disallows us from improving and advancing as a nation because we are constantly trying to not do what everyone else is doing because we want to be different. We don't want universal health care because the Europeans do it. My mental health wasn't fixed by the United States healthcare system. It was fixed because I was fortunate enough to have lived in England for nearly 3 years. I got specialized assistance that I would have never gotten here in the United States unless I was financially prepared to fund it. Cognitive behavioral therapy. Why? Because unlike the United States, they weren't just focused on funneling, medication down my throat. They wanted to figure out what was the root of my issues. But here, medication is used as a band aid, and yes, medication helped me at my worst. I haven't been on it for over 3 years, but that's because I did that work in order to heal from it. Medication helped me, and I would have not survived without it. However, there should be ways of trying to mitigate, ways to get out of that through the actual investment financially into things like public health. But since other countries are doing it, we don't want to do it. But here's the thing, there's no problem with learning from other nations, from how their societies work. When you live in a different country and you get to know its environment and you get to enjoy what it gives you, you start to understand that your country could be working so much more efficiently if it only took some advice from how other countries are organizing their society. Things that I don't do, even though I've returned to the United States, include I don't litter. I don't care if there is no trash can available. I'll put it in my pocket. I'll put it somewhere that isn't the floor. In London, if someone sees you litter, it's not acceptable. Like, I just don't know how to explain it except that it is not culturally acceptable, so you don't do it. Just like no one's going to send you to prison for not standing on the right and walking on the left. But you learn to just adapt and be organized in how society is working because it makes it much more efficient. However, in the United States, it feels like we want to overcompensate in how we work by always trying to go against authority rather than just accepting that we have to be like an ecosystem and living amongst each other and making that much more tolerable and efficient so that we can work well to better produce our own prosperities because when we each prosper, we all prosper. Which is why in London you're much more efficient. If you're just chilling, you can stand on the right and you can walk on the left. Another behavior that hasn't changed is I walk fast. I walk fast. And I'm in California where that's not a thing. So people find it to be very odd asking me where am I going where I walk so fast. I have to go from point A to point B. Point B doesn't even have to be anywhere. I just have to be efficient in how I'm going because if I'm not going, then what I'm doing is I'm distracting myself and I have ADHD and need to be organized proactively or else my life is just messy. Like, how amazing would it be for us to actually invest into our public transportation system? London has the most amazing, obviously, having gone to other countries where it's said that they also have amazing public transportation systems, but London has amazing public transportation system. I will miss the tube until the day I pass because, wow. With that said, I also have a tattoo of the London tube system. Can you see it? Not a really good angle, but it is a really efficient system. However, we cannot take inspiration from their system because that's a European system. We don't want to be like Europeans. So instead of an efficient public system, what we're going to do is just invest in everyone having cars. We're not going to invest in our society. We're going to invest on corporations. And that's the thing. I don't even think we're a nation. What we are right now is just a subscription based pyramid scheme. And we have to get out of this. But that starts with us truly understanding what our actual American culture is. And that itself isn't a resistance to cultures everywhere else, it is an observation of the distinct subcultures that had to do in order to create the United States of America, either through force, through history, whatever. Point is, we are all here. If you're not Native American, you are here because you are from a diaspora that was brought here to this territory. Now, reality, we have to start to understand what truly does it mean to be American? What truly does it mean to exist in American culture? And what do we want our country to look like? Do we want it to be efficient for corporations, or do we want it to be efficient for you and me? Right? Are we going to design society to uphold the corporate interests, or do we want it to be much more tolerable to the people actually living it, like Asian countries do, like Japan does, where it's efficient for the person to exist in and everything is made in accordance to our habits and for us to not truly think because it just makes sense for it to be easy and to not be difficult to live. And sure, it does have its own issues, but that's why we don't take on full inspiration from every place. We just take what's good and we incorporate that to what we are, or we build on what we have in order to create it a much more perfect union. The fact is, we haven't done that because we have been misinterpreted into what our past history when regards to American constitutionalism truly is. But that's what the series of debunking Republicans will hopefully do, because what we see is that what the Republicans have been preserving isn't America. What it is nostalgia of what they consider to be the golden era of America, and that isn't the United States Constitution. That was state rights. That was the Articles of Confederation. That was white manifest destiny. But we have to resist that through remembering what truly is America. And I know you're gonna think, all of this problematic stuff. Yes, yes, of course. But what are we now? What are we now? And that is a multi-dimensional answer. But ultimately, we have things that connect us. And unless we feel like we are one, then we will not want the best for each other. Because you don't want people you dislike to have the same benefits as you. And that's the problem. I want people who I don't like to have benefits. I don't care if that doesn't benefit me, because ultimately we are in the same team. We're in the same country. And if you are facing hardship, the government should be capable of mitigating that, because otherwise, why do we have a government? But that starts not with political willingness, but that comes from a demand from the bottom. We have to let go of American exceptionalism because we are not immune from being a terrible country. What we have to do is take accountability and start to actually restore what was lost and actually preserve what's good and built upon what isn't. Because ultimately, what the United States of America is a safe haven for those who ran from places that were no longer fitting to their needs. And we created a place on top of conflict, on top of trauma, but now we're forced to live amongst each other. And our question becomes, what type of America do you want to live in? And if that is not under the constitutional republic, then the problem isn't the United States. The problem isn't our constitution. The problem is you. The problem is that maybe you should migrate to a much more conservative and extremist country. But you won't, because you'll just probably end up in a socialist European country, right? See, you want people to benefit from social wellness. You just don't want people who don't look like you to benefit from it. That's why you'll rather go to Europe and fund it there than be here in the United States and fund it for people who you think are less than to benefit from what you think belongs to only those who are worthy of social services. We have to shift this mentality. And hopefully I can help to that end with whatever the hell I'm doing here.